I'm going to start recording now then.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I know we're doing some logistical stuff at the start.
Okay.
All right, we're live now.
Elise, first off, I want you to feel comfortable. If you're not, let us know what your limitations of time and desire are. Don't be shy about that. Okay.
Sure. I was just going to respond to something Alan had said. I love going in and making everything consistent, referring to board with the capital B every time, the city with the capital C every time. There were a few places that were within verbatim comments that I left alone. And so I did reject those changes, hoping that we could all understand why keeping them as
right, because all you're doing is quoting somebody in the verbiage that they're using.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And,
so, but yeah, all the rest of the places I was like, yep, click.
Right.
You know, one of the things too that we've done in some of the reports that I've done with my own company is that at the beginning, before we start quoting folks, we say that we have not made any changes to a person's specific quote with regard to content and or spelling, etc. And then you don't have to use sick throughout the whole document, which can get to be a bit aggravating. So I want to try to do, we want to add that in too, just to make, I think everybody understands that when people are typing, they're not going to be judged on their writing skills when they're filling out a survey. Let's see. So we generally, how do you feel about the report? Any concerns, any accolades, any heads up that we need to be aware of? Well, I'll just say that I think that the report, both from a content perspective, a writing style, and what we're telling folks, I think is incredibly good. I think it's better than what I've seen some of these consultants receive from the city for God knows how much money. I think it tells an accurate story, and I think that it will help us move forward in what we want to try to do. I told Sarah last week that we would not be doing any recommendations until after we had spoken to staff, and she and Ben both agree that that's good, that because they're the staff is the one that started this ball rolling in the first place. And so we need to incorporate those comments as best we can. We have 22 people, I believe it is, that need to be interviewed who are former staff liaisons. And I'm still working on those questions. I'm trying to pare them down to 10 at the most. And Sarah didn't seem to think that they would be, that the staff liaisons, current or former, would be too concerned about being identified with a particular statement, such as, they're in their discussion of how they answer a question. It's very likely that because of the way they answer it, it would be very clear what specific board or commission they were talking about. And I worried about them wanting to maintain their anonymity. But then we kind of said, well, if we know who they're talking about, the whole world knows who they're talking about too, because it's not like some of the issues haven't been, the dirty laundry hadn't been shown in social media and all this kind of stuff in a more open, transparent manner. So that might not be an issue, but for our next meeting, let's be thinking about how you think it would be best to handle some of those. and how we might be able to make the staff people feel more comfortable. Next question is do you think that these interviews ought to be face to face, or do you think we can do them online? Nina, you had your hand raised. Why don't we go with what your comment is first, and then we'll go to Patrick.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly revisit this issue of setting the stage properly for this report, because I think there are many folks, some who were previous participants in this effort, and however many people there may be in the general public or even on council, who have been anticipating and hoping for eventual recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think how we describe this effort publicly of this particular report as being preliminary to recommendations, and why we're not going directly to recommendations at this point is really important, that we be clear about that it be, that expectations be managed so that people aren't saying, well, okay, we see all these results. What's the upshot? So, I would like to make sure that any preface or contextualization of this report gives a really clear explanation for why recommendations aren't forthcoming at this point, and gives some expectation of the process and or timeline for eventual recommendations.
Right. Patrick?
Yeah, I'll just say briefly, I agree that it's important that we should, I believe there's a next step section at the end of the document, and I think we should just explain there that this is our analysis. We have a pretty well-defined next step, the interview or survey of staff, and then we'll be proceeding to work out our recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to comment on whether we should do the interviews in person or online.
Yeah.
I tend to think that it would probably be easier logistically if we just created a survey and sent it to the 22 staff members. And that seems to me like it's more likely we'll get complete answers, and staff would be more comfortable completing it that way rather than us, sitting down with someone. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay. I in this particular instance, normally what we would do is we do one-on-ones with folks and we write down their answers ourselves. But I'm okay with them doing it, and they may feel more comfortable on a survey format instead of a face-to-face. Alan?
Couple things. Although you might get more honest responses in a face-to-face, where you can look at body language and pick up on a couple things and do follow-up questions. I do like in terms of efficiency and getting this done in a reasonable amount of time, I do like sending out a questionnaire, and hopefully people will be responsive to that and willing to fill that out. It's far more efficient. Although if we could do an interview face-to-face using Zoom or something like that, you could record the conversation, and that way you have a documentation of what's going on, what the responses are, and add some, provide some feedback on that too. So I just wanted to throw that out about doing a Zoom type interview but I do like sending out this. I agree with Patrick, maybe just sending it out, and in terms of efficiency and getting this thing done in a reasonable amount of time. Otherwise, you're getting into serious delays. That's all I had to add. Thanks.
Patrick, if we were to do it by Zoom, is it possible that a draft, a typewritten, does that come automatically, or can it be generated?
I mean, you could generate a transcript automatically, but then someone on our team would have to basically go and fill out the survey.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I just think logistically, you could be talking about 22 individual interviews. So, you know, that
Right.
is a logistical challenge in itself.
I agree.
Right. Right.
I agree.
Jack, what did you have to say?
I've over the years done a fair amount of interviewing in my day, and I think the only way that it would make sense to do this as a one-on-one in-person interview is if the same person interviewed all of the respondents
Oh, that's a good point. Mhm.
in order to make sure that we have some consistency in how the questions are asked. And the other thing we would need to decide in advance, is this a structured questionnaire or is it a conversation?
Mhm.
Because an
That's true. Yeah.
in-person can become a conversation, which can be much more revealing, but it's different.
Right.
It's a lot more time consuming as far as distilling the information.
Yeah.
They've given you. Nina? You're on mute.
Sorry. Here's a proposal. I think it makes all the sense in the world to commence with a structured questionnaire. Once we've had a chance to review the responses to that questionnaire, it may make sense to have follow-up interviews to solicit more detail from specific people on specific topics to get a more nuanced or detailed response. I think we can use the questionnaires as a way to identify those kinds of follow-up issues.
Nina just froze up, and did we just lose somebody, Patrick?
I took my presentation down since we're talking about
Okay.
the staff questions. Yeah.
Okay,
But yeah, Nina, you did freeze up there if you want to give it another shot.
I'm sorry, Google Meet is the worst for me. Basically, I'm just saying we can use the questionnaires to identify areas where we might want to ask follow-up questions or get a more detailed, nuanced response from certain people about certain specific topics. So it seems to me like that's an opportunity to put the staff members sort of through a sieve, get as much information from everyone that in the same format, and then if needed or if it would be helpful, we can go back and ask specific queries to specific people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty.
Quick question, was there an agenda for this meeting?
No, just this. Well, yes, Patrick. I mean, we had one on the Google.
There is. Yeah, let me repost the links.
Patrick is always on
It's
that.
basically the same items as what we did last month. We're talking about the staff questions and the survey analysis subgroup draft report.
And so as far as what my thinking is and what Ben's thinking is that we'll present this document to Ben and Sarah and get their feedback, make sure that it's not a blow up, and then basically it will go to city council at that time, and we will discuss whether we want to do a public presentation at one of their meetings or whether we want to just give it to them and they can talk about it among themselves. I would like somehow to be able to make it public. I don't necessarily want to make it public that it's absolutely necessary we do it during a council meeting, but that it will be distributed publicly so that the community knows that city council has this document and that they can ask them what they're going to do about it. Alan?
I think the document and the committee will get far more recognition if it's done during a council meeting and a formal presentation is made, perhaps with a PowerPoint, where enough of us are present and you can get 10 minutes of their time. And that way the media will also pick it up too. So I'm all in favor of having a presentation before council and getting on their agenda. I don't know how the others of the group feel about that.
Can I get a thumbs up or thumbs down? Jack and Jay, how do y'all feel? Up or down? You guys are on mute, Jack and Jay. Oh, there you go. Okay,
They're
gotcha.
showing thumbs up.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, emoji thumbs up.
Just came through. Okay, well, Elise, what do you think if you were to put together in your illustrious team, what would you put in a PowerPoint? And I don't want you to have to recreate. Would you take just some of these pages that you have from the report and just drop them in?
Yeah, taking a lot of what's in the report, mostly the images. Every time I watch these presentations to the council, I think there's so many words on those presentations, and
Right.
I would rather we stand up there with the report in our hand and read it than just put the report on the slide.
I agree too, but my other concern is that when they put up these pie charts and these bar charts, you can't read a damn thing on them either. I mean, I was in just the other day with Sarah Gross. She had a chart up there.
Yeah.
It was just above breakfast. It was a buzz
Formatting is key when you try to, you can't cram too much information on a slide.
So, we would want it to be simple as possible, only so that the images can be seen
Totally.
And
if we have to mock up a few more images to make that happen, that hasn't been terribly problematic. I think the bigger question would be, when can we get on council's schedule?
Right.
Because then that's going to give us a timeline for putting that together.
And do y'all think we should that's something that we do before we finish up with the staff surveys and the recommendations? Just get this report out, give it to them, show them what they've got, and tell them what our next steps are.
I would just add that, yes, it's lovely if you're on the agenda, but you don't have to be. You can still get 10 minutes of time and you can get a PowerPoint to Maggie for display and do the presentation during general comment. It's not necessary to be on the agenda.
Right, but I think the being on the agenda gives it some legitimacy as opposed to just a grassroots uprising sort of thing.
Well, since we're not presenting recommendations at this point, but it's basically a progress report.
Right.
I don't know that. I mean, you could argue that doesn't rise to the level of an agenda item because they're not going to take any action on it. It's just being reported.
Well, I'll talk to Ben about that.
I tend to agree with Nina here that until we have recommendations, I do feel like it's a little premature to go to council.
I think we can go just go as a progress report.
Right. In your formal sense of being like on the agenda, I feel like it's premature for that. But yeah, doing the informal. Yeah.
Okay. right, let me check with Ben what he thinks in case he has some strong feelings about it.
I want to make one comment.
Go ahead, Alan.
I think getting on the agenda at least sets the stage for more to come. And I think it'll help gather some recognition for the work that's been done to date and prepare people for the final recommendations that will be forthcoming. So that's my thought.
Okay, Patrick and then Jack.
Yeah, my thought is that I do think we should generally ask to be put on the agenda, and I think if that request isn't granted, we could consider whether we just want to do it as a public comment, which doesn't require that approval. But I tend to think that it would be appropriate for us to do a presentation on our report as it is now, even if we don't have recommendations. And I personally feel that would be appropriate to do even as an agenda item, as long as we emphasize at the end that, we plan to come back once we finish our work with our recommendations.
Okay, Jack.
A couple of things. One is, I know at one time we had been discussing whether we should be going first to the boards and commissions committee before going to the full council. I don't know if we've decided against that or if it just was not followed up on.
I've gotten the impression from Ben to just go straight to the commissioners. I mean, to the council. Since
Okay.
staff went straight to the council also.
Okay.
Again, I'll check with him on that or bring it up to him again.
And so my second point, I'm looking at the linked report rather than the displayed report that was on the screen. And I'm not sure, I know there were some edits that I submitted just yesterday, and I'm not seeing them reflected in any way, but
Did you do that on the Word document or the Google document?
it was a Word document because I attached it to the email that I sent telling.
I did not
suggesting-
incorporate those, but I can
Okay.
certainly pull up your email and incorporate those.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it if you at least look at them because I've completely changed. At the end of the sort of the last page, there were 3 headings: conclusions, recommendations, key takeaways, which to me all mean the same thing, or could easily mean the same thing to a lot of people. And so I kind of changed that. I retained the conclusions heading and pretty significantly changed the way it's presented. So I would like that at least considered.
Okay. All right. Thank you for catching that. Any other comments about meeting up with the city council?
Well, I think there's an open question of whether we want to ask or start exploring when we might be able to get on the agenda. Stacy, do you think that's something you could ask Ben or
Yeah, I'll
Sarah
check
about?
yeah. I will do that.
For what it's
And-
worth.
yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
For what it's worth, one of the advantages of the general comment period is that you can just go ahead and do it whenever you're ready. You don't have to ask for time. You don't have to give them, a week's notice or whatever, or a month's notice, or you can just stand up and do it. So.
True. Alan, did you have something? Okay. I think it is encouraging that they do want us to go directly to council. I think it's encouraging that they have had no qualms about meeting with staff and what they might have to say. And so, I think it'll be good. I think it'll be illustrative and open their eyes up a little bit, and hopefully, they're already putting into place some things, but again, the whole part about trying to get younger people and people of color onto these committees, boards, commissions, everything is difficult. And it is difficult from a variety of perspectives from what I've understood and talking to county commissioners and talking to city council folks and staff. So, we as a community have got to come up with some creative ways that maybe we can break that. And part of that's a whole cultural thing. I mean, I'm sitting here trying to recruit for a board of directors and trying to get people of color. It's been difficult too. So be thinking about that too, about new and different ways we can recruit folks to be on these take their time to do these volunteer things. Was there anything else? Nina? Oh, left the meeting. Anything else?
I put together a list of final action items if you all would like for me to share.
Please.
Okay. Dropping it in the chat. Basically, I just went through top to bottom and tried to identify any little missing things and split that into a couple of various groups for more minor versus more major things. So formatting wise, there's a table of contents refresh and those key takeaway page refresh. Checking all of the links and accessibility. I do think that would be best if someone besides me did that to make sure that people besides me can access the thing.
Right.
I
I'll
did
go
change them
through
all
this,
too.
Elise, and
That'll be a Stacy.
I'll do
CY?
these things.
Or CY.
Yeah. Here. Oh, it's CY. Easy. Don't make it a more complicated.
Okay.
So
I'm
I'll
pretty
go
sure
through
I made
of
sure all
these.
those were like anyone with the link can access, but Google's weird, so I just like to make sure.
Yeah, I'll go through all of these that we're talking about, and except for that one about the table of contents and the full appendix.
There's that I think Jack has already sent me what I need to do that. So I will take that and I'll maybe reach out to Jack if I need some follow-up.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't actually know people's last names, so I'm putting my whole last name and everyone else's initial.
That's fine. Well, we know who we are. Now here's a thought, a random weird thought. If we are on the agenda and not in public comment, if we choose to be on the agenda itself, our friend Grant Millen was probably trolling the agenda for the city council. That will be, the mayor's problem to deal with him if he comes up and wants to say something. Just to be prepared, because who knows what he might do. So that's one advantage, disadvantage to being on the agenda itself. Any comments on that? Any concerns?
I would just say that I think part of doing work in the public is any member of our community is welcome to comment on it. So I think that's part of the work we're doing.
Right. Just don't want you to be caught off guard. Let's see. So then Elise, I'll do that. I'll go through that and which fixes the mention
Okay.
of the quotes.
I have two keyboards in front of me, and I keep using the one that's not connected to the computer. Yeah, the that in which, I'm sure that is a artifact of my writing style. So, and you said you'd go through and add just a little blurb at the top of the open-endeds about verbatim and remove all those SIC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm doing it again. I'm using the wrong keyboard. And then I have, so what's left is for a little bit of new content that we talked about today was adding a next steps section, as well as adding a section that might just talk about why we're not making recommendations at this time. Are there any volunteers who want to draft those sections?
I can take a stab at that.
That was Jack, I think.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
that's me.
Okay. I'm not looking at the board.
Jack, did you address some of that in the changes in the stuff that you did yesterday?
By implication, but we
Oh,
can,
okay. All right then.
we can draw it
And
out a little.
was I correct? Were you volunteering for both of those assignments or just one?
I can take on both.
Okay.
Thank you.
And who would like to be responsible for the final read through? Ideally, someone who maybe hasn't been staring at this as much as, say, myself or Stacy has, and they might pick up that that missing comma or something like that. You know.
I'm sorry, I just got froze out. Were you asking for a copy edit volunteer?
Basically, yeah, the final read through, making sure all those I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
I'm happy to help with that.
Okay, great.
Dee Williams is really swamped right now, but I may see if she's got some time to read through it too, just because she was one of our early members. And the other thing is that I've got to get the list of all the people who participated. And I was just going through the videos and picking up people's names.
That did remind me that I actually had 4 final, just small things that I hope we could settle in this group right now and not have to take outside of it.
Wait, hold on one second, Elise. Alan, you had a
I was
comment?
just going to add that I saw Jay raise his hand also with the final copy read, so I didn't want him to feel like he was denied.
Oh, God forbid that we should deny
So-
somebody the opportunity.
He just got it. It's all good.
Okay. What were those items, Elise?
Okay. So I saw that Alan had made some changes where we discussed public input. And so since that is kind of like I did some research, and so public input is like a company that government organizations can use to power their public engagement. And so in order to better describe that, I think it was on page 5 here, kind of in the middle about the survey. I just changed that there to say it was administered using Asheville's public engagement hub powered by publicinput.com.
That's good.
As well as further
I initially,
on page 8 under data summary again, I changed that to publicinput.com, which powers Asheville's engagement hub, provided a report of responses.
is it,
Okay.
Elise, is it public input or is it NC public engagement that empowers public input? How do we,
If you go
because
to
I changed it back and forth a couple times.
Yeah, if you go to publicinput.com/Asheville,
Yeah.
/City of Asheville, it says City of Asheville NC Engagement Hub.
Public,
So
public engagement or engagement? Public
it
engagement?
just says Engagement Hub.
Oh, I thought
You're
it was
right.
public engagement. Okay.
Yeah, the City of Asheville Engagement Hub is the online home for outreach and listening efforts.
Right.
And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom, it says powered by publicinput.com, where if you click that, it takes you to like just public input site where they're trying to sell you, you know, their service or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure everyone was cool with how that was presented.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
The other, then at the top of page 4, I'm sorry, I'm taking us all over the place.
That's okay.
The top of page 4, we had intentionally planned to have an executive summary, but it seems like we have written quite concisely that it seems like between the introduction and the key takeaways, maybe there is no need for an executive summary. Can we remove that section?
Yes, that's my take. What about the rest of y'all?
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Actually, in fact, I think I typed in that executive summary because this is the executive summary. And then we go into introduction and background.
Yeah, it kind of seems like a double header there.
Okay, well,
So I didn't know if there was more to go there, or if we should just go into the intro. I think might suffice.
but, well, maybe we should say executive summary and not introduction. And then that way, because so many people just immediately are looking for that executive summary. So let's use executive summary and not introduction, but then keep with the background. And that'll get them going.
Or move the key takeaways back up to the top.
I think if you go directly to the key takeaways,
You missed the context.
Yeah, you missed it. You needed to know.
I think the key takeaways belong at the end of the introduction.
Okay. Okay, then what I'm hearing is remove the executive. I think we should remove the executive summary header, because then it's like, where does just the regular stuff start, you know? And we don't have a clear delineation there. So my personal preference would be to remove that header, start with introduction, and then that flows into key takeaways after that.
I agree
Right,
with that.
introduction.
I don't think
Introduction, which includes background, survey development, and then a new section for key takeaways. Is that
Okay, let's do that and let's see how it all plays out.
okay? I think that just means taking out this header.
Mhm.
Okay, executive summary. We talked about public input. Kind of a minor little silly thing, but when we're quoting people who are members of the Public Art and Cultural Commission, I think we had listed their board as Public Art and Culture, just to shorten it, as opposed to Public Art and Cultural.
Those are two big different words, though.
Okay.
And so I think it's important to give it the correct word. Having served on that board, I mean, it's just two different words.
Okay. I trust your judgment on that, and I just want to
Okay.
make
Yeah.
sure that, okay. Then we will leave those as Public Art and Cultural, and people can fill in commission with their brains.
If they have one, yes.
Yeah. And then the list of people who were involved, should we move that to the end?
Typically acknowledgements are up front.
I'm kind of going through my head some reports I've just read recently. I think it's important to give people proper due early on.
Okay. That's all I
You can
got. Those
list
are
them
my
in-
4 things.
You can list them in 2 columns or something like that, which makes it less, take up less page space.
And I'm playing around with having it as 2 groups because I think that you guys need to have top billing, and I don't want y'all to get lost in the alphabetical list. So I'm working on that. Okay. Oh, I wanted to ask you, Elise, on this right here, just at the beginning of the introduction, current board officers and as opposed to commission chairs and vice chairs.
Just shorten it, but
I know, but the public input document was, and Ted or Jack, I can't remember which one of y'all might have gone back and looked at those notes. They specifically said commission chairs and vice chairs. And I don't know if some of these other boards and commissions have other officers other than chairs and vice chairs. And
I
that
believe most of the secretaries have been phased out at this point for
Okay.
staff secretaries. So to me, they're synonymous, but I'm not going to fight over that. I
no,
understand.
okay. I just wanted to be sure. I agree. I think fewer words are always better if we can get away with it. Okay.
I think I did put a comment in there about calling out Aisha Adams by name and her background and whatever relevance that is.
Because one of the things is that when you have a consultant, I wanted it to be known that this was not a city staff person who was doing this facilitation. Partly because it was so poorly done. 2, I do think it's important for the community to know that we paid extra for an outside consultant to do this. And when I'm looking at these reports, and I know it's only because I am a consultant or our business is a consulting business, that we do look very heavily at who are doing these, who are the consultants doing what work and how are they doing it and how successful are they doing it, da 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 da. So I do think it's important for us to play that out, and she can take the hits or not. Alan, what do you think?
I was going to add that maybe we should state outside consultant, specify that she is an outside consultant, so people recognize the fact that she's not part of the city staff. And when you say outside consultant, that means she's assumably being paid for her work.
Why don't we say facilitate by contracted consultant Aisha Adams or something like that.
I don't have a problem with outside consultant, but you're trying to throw in the fact that she was paid for her work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It seems to me that the word consultant is enough to establish that.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Okay.
I can't think of a time when we've been acknowledged that anybody ever thought that we were
Unpaid consultants.
well, we are a lot of time. The unpaid part, well, that happens a lot, but not that we were part of the staff. If we're listed as a consultant, they know that we're not staff.
Right.
So I think we're okay with that. Elise, were there any other?
I think consultant gets that word across. If we wanted to drive that point home further, we could change it to from Lenore Rhine, and that kind of subtly hints at that. But yeah, I think consultant gets that across.
Yeah.
And I understand your point now. I just wanted to understand why we're
Right.
throwing that in there.
Right. And I mean, yeah. Were there any other wishy things like that that we need to maybe clarify?
On this, I just wanted to say, like, I don't know if the city engaged Aisha individually or engaged her in her capacity of working with Lenore Ryan. If it wasn't with Lenore Ryan, then I think this is a bit ambiguous. It suggests that the city engaged Lenore Ryan's Diversity and Equity Institute. And if
They specifically engaged Aisha because of her training with the Diversity and Equity Institute. So
she
right,
wasn't,
I think like she's involved in a lot of things around town, but if she was
Mhm.
not there in her capacity with Lenore Ryan, then I don't think we should implicate.
no, she was. It wasn't her. I'll double check that with Ben, but it wasn't her private. I'm trying to think of what I read. I'm pretty sure they did it through Lenore Ryan, and they asked for her because I think she lives here actually.
my recollection is that she introduced herself as a professional facilitator.
Right.
And I don't know whether she mentioned her own business or not, but that was the impression that I was left. I didn't think I heard anything about Lenore Ryan at the time.
Okay, I'll double check with Ben on that one. Okay.
I'm trying to look at emails to see which email address she was sending from.
Let's see.
Stacey, I made a note in the minutes that you'll follow up with Ben on
Okay.
that. I do think that we should get clarity from the city's perspective how we describe that relationship.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it's I don't know that she actually initiated any emails.
She was using her personal, or not a personal, but her business email when she was responding to our things. It's Aisha at AishaAdamsMedia.com.
Oh, see, that's not showing up on that. Okay. I'll check with Sarah or Ben on that one. Okay. All right. Any others? Okay, hearing none. We've got a lot of homework to do, but we are moving along so well, and I'm so excited about all of this that Nina, as soon as we get your Nina left the meeting. Yes, Jack.
Yeah, sorry for the delayed response.
That's okay.
I'm looking to see if it's been, when there's reference to page numbers, I'm trying to see if what the current reference is. I know we had PG and PGS and an abbreviation for the word page.
Page or pages.
Right.
I think another version had PP in it also. Is there a preference for PG over PP?
PP is
I hadn't even noticed the PP.
Writing style documents will tell you that the abbreviation for page is P. The abbreviation for pages is PP.
That is correct.
Learn something new.
Well, when we'll do that. That has changed since I was in college 40 years ago.
I will add that to the small list of formatting things to change.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was another edit I made in the last thing I shipped out yesterday that
Oh, okay.
we
All
can,
right.
if you can just take a look at that. There's other changes I made too. I don't remember them in detail because I was working on it offline because that gave me the freedom to sort of do it whenever.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll fix that. Okay,
We're in a
folks.
really good place.
I think so. You'll be need to get that stuff to us on Wednesday, and we'll get cracking on it. And I'll call my friend in again. Yes, Patrick and Nina.
Yeah, I just had, I was going to share a link to the Google group and also the email for the Google group. I just wanted to ask, as we're kind of pushing towards the finish here, if there's anything you want to make sure it goes out to the full group, feel free to, email whoever you need to directly. But if you can CC the Google group, that'll ensure it goes out to everyone who's subscribed and that it's archived if anyone needs to catch up after the fact. So I just put the link and the email address into the chat.
You're great. Nina, you had something?
I sent a request to be allowed to edit that Google Doc, the report. And if I can do that, then I can just add my own observations and edits directly that way. And then I don't have to send you anything. I could just do that directly if that's okay.
I just fixed that for you, so you should have access now. I'm positive everybody in this group right now has access to that document. If someone is missing access, please have them email me. And I don't check my email like every 5 minutes, but I will get to it.
I don't understand. All righty. Okay. Well, thank y'all very much. And we'll talk soon.
One more thing I'd like to mention, if I may.
Yes.
On Elise's action item list. I've added myself to help her with the TOC refresh because I noticed there are the formatting within the document is actually what drives the TOC. And I've noticed that there are a couple of formatting errors that have impacted what's shown now, but that's a small matter. The larger matter is I think we need to think about what deadlines we want to put on some of these things, because Nina's final read-through should not occur until everything else is done at minimum.
Well, Nina's going to make some changes. Then we're going to clean it up, and then she'll have the final read through after that.
There's a lot of stuff that we can fix before she reads it. Otherwise, she's going to be trying to fix it too. And she won't have to.
Well, okay, I think we're talking about two different things. Nina has some, and you may have missed it because we were talking about this earlier. She has on her desk a handwritten some changes that she read through when she read through it earlier this week that she wants to include for all of us to see.
Okay.
And then Elise
I'm speaking only of the final read through on the RWG action items that Elise is editing live.
Yes.
Nina was going to do a final read through. I interpreted that to mean the final document before it gets published. Nina's going to read it.
Yes.
Yes, in addition to the substantive edits that she's going to supply later this week. But yes, Jack, obviously Nina's final read-through is going to have to come later. Should we set a target date of like this Friday or at latest next Friday to have all of the rest of the action items completed so that the final read-through can begin?
That's the question.
I could work with a this Friday deadline if necessary.
Yeah, I think I could too.
Okay.
Stacey, what about you? Because I know you took on a lot of those too.
Yeah, I think I should be able to also. Let me look. Yeah, Friday, maybe Saturday. But
Okay,
yes. Mhm.
How about next Monday? We'll call it next Monday.
That
sure.
makes sense to me.
That
Give us
sounds good.
give us all the
A
weekend.
weekend.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Okie dokie. Patrick.
Yeah, I just wanted to share something not specific to the report, but I just wanted to update the group that I've had some people ask me about the Citizens Police Advisory Committee. CPAC is the acronym, which hasn't met since 2020. And I reached out to the deputy city clerk and then the city manager and council, just saying, this committee hasn't met in 3 years. What's holding it up? Are there members on it? What's the plans for it? I just wanted to share to the group that I did hear from the clerk's office says they're not meeting because we haven't been asked for them to meet. And the city manager indicated to me that the city's in the process of assessing their boards and committees. CPAC is part of the assessment. It's the city manager's recommendation that they don't resume any committees that currently aren't meeting until that assessment is completed. So I would just indicate that it's something maybe for this group to think about as we move to our recommendations, whether, I know the recreation board hasn't been meeting, and CPAC's another, there could be others, but if we feel that these boards should be meeting or shouldn't be paused in the future, that could be something we'd want to include in our recommendations.
Good point. Of course, the Parks and Rec thing, they had a change in their director, which is blessed, thank God. And that could get revitalized because I think this new director likes input, whereas the past one did not. So it could be that one is the only one. That police thing, boy, that's based on even just the comments in this report. That was very interesting. Nina, what do you have?
I would just like to make an observation that boards which have not been meeting or have been highly contentious or are being considered not being reconvened until some unknown date might be interesting to observe the demographics of those boards. And by the seat of my pants, I'd like to suggest that it's quite likely that those boards have a higher degree of minority representation on them, and one could easily interpret this as a silencing of those voices. So that's something we might consider looking at. Frankly, I think it's shocking, given our history of the last several years, that the Citizens Police Advisory Committee has not met, because you would think that the city would want to hear from its citizens through such a board. So yeah, I think it's potentially an embarrassment that hasn't been functioning.
True. It's yeah. I'm trying to think of who's on the Parks and Rec board.
Well, there isn't one right now.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to think of in the past. It wasn't as colorful as one would expect it to be, honestly. But anyway. Okay, folks. So
And I'll just share my outreach was kind of just to figure out the decision making process, where the buck stops with that. And it seems to me, I will note that I didn't hear back from any council members when I asked about the status. So it seems that at least at this point, the city manager's recommendation is to not restart them, and nobody is pushing on that. So, it's just another indication of why the work we're doing is important.
I agree. Thank you very much for that. Anything else for the good of the cause? Elise, Jack, Jay, Ted, thank y'all. Ted's not here. In abstention, thank y'all so much for all the work y'all have done. We appreciate it, and it's stellar. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for the edits and the feedback from Stacy and Alan as well. It's
All
been a really
right,
group effort.
guys. Rock and roll. Talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.